Okay, after making that video about women, and you know, women were treated like crap throughout most of history, and I think I knew, as my higher self knew, that that would happen, because the population was getting too big, hence things like war needed to happen. And war only happens when males are in control of things. I think if women were in control of things, wars wouldn't happen. But then the population would just start increasing way too much, and that would be an even bigger problem, because then huge number of souls would just be all, having their first life, and their life wouldn't be, um, you know, problems will still happen, but it would happen in a more savage way, rather than in a proper way, rather than in a sort of more organized. The war's bad, but at the same time, at least, you have your two sides, you have your outfits, you have your, I don't know, laws or whatever, and it's more organized, than just how things were, when in the no Norman times or whatever, Viking, Anglo-Saxons. That's what wars were like back then, just savagery basically. And when things got better, it's well, actually the Vikings was Roman time, wasn't it? I don't know. I'm not really sure, but wars got better over time, and they got. But anyway, I need to also add that, you know, black slavery was also a really bad thing. I couldn't have stopped it. There's no way I could have stopped it. But I think as a place, I think it's nice to have black and white people, because it shows diversity, and Asian people as well. There's a lot of Asian people, though I have noticed that in all my lists of like favorite characters, favorite this, favorite that, there is very few Asian people. I know BB Rexha is, when she doesn't have blonde hair. When she has blonde hair, you can't notice it, but when she has brown hair, you're like, oh wow, yeah, she's like, that's what I really really like her. But I noticed that in my list, there's very few Asian people. I think that is just because, without insulting them, there is a lot of backwards people in the Middle East, and I am reminded of that. Hence why, I don't know, but why is it that there's very few Asian, like, sing, like, they're all like different types of music. Oh, I don't know, wavy stuff that's all over the place. And Hindu, I like Hindu. Like, there's, they expose their hair, and I like exposing my hair. Except right now it's looking really messy. Uh, but yes, anyway, I just noticed that I don't really tap in too much on that. But when it comes to black and white, I'm a very big fan of black and white. Okay, a lot of my darker skinned characters are kind of more on the darker message stuff, but good and bad works together. There's good and bad in everything, and you need to love both good and bad of everything, because the bad teaches you things, and without negativity, or bad without evil, you wouldn't fully learn, and you wouldn't fully know what good is, and right and wrong is. But yeah, I'm not saying that colored people are evil in any way. If you've just come on to my video and have no idea what I'm actually talking about, if you come across my channel, but anyway, yeah, there's I'm a big fan on those two, basically. And yeah, if the population is getting too big, wars and you know division is actually the best way to reduce the population. Um, and yeah, it's really really bad what happened with the black slaves, but in the same way that people were persecuting women. So I thought, okay, let's put the first people who are living first lives as women. Let's do that to help them, because if people who are living their first lives aren't as intelligent, and therefore if people are going to insult women, making sure that a lot of women are living their first lives, they'll be like my mum, and they'll just brush it off, and they won't be as offended as someone who's developed lots of feelings. And or males don't really have feelings, because they don't tap into my energy as much. But then again, that's good. If the dumb people are tapping into the sort of more emotional energy, then it will help them develop and get more through. There's good and bad in everything. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so it's very complicated, and yeah, there's good and bad in everything, and therefore I like the idea of black and white. The problem is all the white people were in America, except for the people that they drove out, the Native Americans. But yeah, the Native Americans, they weren't doing anything. They didn't have the skill, they didn't have the technology, and the people, there was too many people in the world. So when the Americans came and killed all the Native Americans, all it was just depopulation. There was too many people, too many souls, and two hamsters in a hamster wheel going opposite directions aren't going to work. You know, the Native Americans didn't believe in the new people that were coming. They didn't believe in their technology. They didn't believe in their way of life. They were insistent on, you know, people don't like evolving. People don't like it changing. So what the Americas did, you know, they had better stuff. They had, you know, they had a better way of thinking. And they said to these Native Americans, you know, change, be like us, or we're going to kill you. Okay. And they might have not even had the option sometimes. I don't know, there was too many people in the world, and you just have to believe that things happen, that bad things happen for good reasons. And yes, a lot of people died, but it's all just souls. At the end of the day, it's all just souls. All those souls would have just died, and then they would have just been reborn back into the new people's economy. Only this time they would have had a whole new body, a whole new life, and they would, you know, their parents now would be the invaders. You know, before they were people living in the towns under all these just bad technologies, like, oh, I can make a pot, and that was about all they could. Like, the Native Americans did not do that much. I'm sorry, they did not have the technology, they did not have the skill, and they weren't even willing to learn. Now when they died, they all just got reborn into their murderers' families. But yes, so what? They now were able, you know, now they had a new perspective, a new point of view. They were going to copy that after their fathers. When they were children, you know, you learn to copy after their fathers, and then suddenly they all got so no soul died. All the Native Americans, if you think, oh, what they did was awful, they killed all the Native Americans, okay, yes, on the surface it is bad, but if you knew that, if, on God's view, basically, if you knew that all those Native Americans just died and then just became the children of these people who murdered them, then suddenly you're like, oh, should you hate them for killing them, or should you hate the fact that actually they've just basically made themselves new children? They've just taken the souls from these people, put them in their children, and now they're bringing them up under new ideologies, under new things. And I think similar thing happened with blacks. And you know, I like the idea of black and white living together, black and white people living together. And unfortunately, for that to happen, black people needed to come from Africa to America, and black people, their culture wasn't as developed. I don't really know what Africa was like 100, 200 years ago. 200 years ago, was it 200 years ago? I don't know what Africa was like 200 years ago, but like the Native Americans, I don't think their technology or their I don't, I like the outfits. Okay, I see the pictures of, you know, they had some nice houses, and they had. Did they have nice? I haven't seen any nice houses in Africa. In fact, even now, I haven't seen any nice houses in Africa. Like, well, there's a few. I've been to Egypt, and occasionally you find, oh, that's a nice house. That's a nice house. But I don't know. 200 years ago, very few houses were nice, and I I don't know. I can't give you the proper answer to this because I don't know the facts about what Africa looked like back then, or how developed. But the catch I'm making is that when these black people came to England, you know, white people wanted slaves, and they were going to obviously be a victim of that. And luckily, it managed to resolve itself and get better. And all those black people, when they died, they all just died and became white people. And so, yeah, it's kind of sad to think that they might have just lived a whole life being a servant to someone, and then they might have been killed by that person, only to die and become that person's next son or daughter. Yes, that's a bit harsh, but you shouldn't be racist because that is what happened. And those sons and daughters might have grown up beating black people, even though they themselves were a black person in their past life. So you don't know, like me, I don't know the specific details on what Africa was like 200 years ago. I don't know how developed what the Western world was at that time. But whatever the fact is, God, my higher self, did know that. And likewise, you don't know what kind of lives, someone lived and what happened to them next. And so, say if the slave owner is insistent on having slaves, how do you know that he wasn't actually a slave in his past life, and he's actually just trying to let out this bad energy that he received? When you're a slave, you don't like being a slave and you hate it. Some people, if they're persecuted, want to change and be like, you know what, I'm going to fight against this. I don't agree with slaves, or if I am having a slave, I'm going to look after my slave properly, because that's how I would want, my slave owner to treat me. My owner to treat me. But some would go the opposite direction and just be like, I feel like in my subconscious this happened to me, so I'm going to make the most and allow this to happen to someone else. There's two different ways people can go. And it is very complicated, because I'm not just talking about one or two people, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands. And but yes, hopefully it made sense.